On to the Philippines now. The voting is over. The counting has begun. More than 60% of the votes have been tallied. It looks like a dictator's son will become the next president of the country. Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is on his way to a historic win. Marcos Jr. shares his name with his dictator father, who used to be a dictator many decades back. Not everybody is thrilled by the prospect of his win. Here's a report.
The voting is over, but the result is a mere formality. An unofficial vote count confirms what opinion polls had predicted. A dictator's son is set to become the next president of the Philippines. Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. is looking at a big victory. Over 65 million voters cast their ballots today. All the votes are yet to be counted, but Marcos Jr. is already miles ahead of his closest rival. The former senator has over 20 million votes. The current Vice President, Leni Robredo, is the challenger. She has received just a little more than 9 million votes so far. Marcos Jr. is likely to hold on to his lead. His victory will mean the return of the Marcos clan to mainstream politics. This is despite the family's history of human rights abuses and corruption. Marcos Jr.'s father, Ferdinand Marcos Sr., was a dictator.
To this historic inauguration,
He was accused of gross human rights abuses and corruption. Thousands of his opponents were arrested, tortured, and killed in the 1970s. The Marcoses plundered as much as $10 billion from the state. But the young voters don't really care about their dark past. More than 50% of the voting population is below 41 years of age. That's around 30 million voters. They were born after the martial law was lifted in the Philippines. The young voters are buying into the promises of prosperity by Marcos Jr. He is running on a platform of unity and vowed to provide more jobs, less inflation, and more investment in agriculture and infrastructure. His election may look like a certainty, but a controversy could set roadblocks in his victory lap. Across the country, thousands of voting machines malfunctioned. Going by one claim, more than 1,800 machines didn't work like they were supposed to. At some places, voters claimed their ballots had been tampered with. Amid such allegations, none of the candidates are going to breathe easy until they hear the final tally. It could take days for all the ballots to be counted.